notification, not even being notified about this. And here we own 180 acres in this proposal. Typically, I looked up MoDOT regulations, and I also looked at Missouri courts. And one of the things that they said for drawing lines for city boundaries is annexations are done in order to even out the lines for the city. This is not an evening out of the lines. This is not an evening out. It's more like throwing a flagpole down and saying, here's our highway, now we can do this, and here's our road over here. So we join at 47, we join at Shoecart, and we join at the North Outer Road with our property. Our entire family is against this. We value our land. We'd like to keep it agriculture. We do not want to become an island. And anything we can do to make the council say no to this, we would be in favor of those discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ma'am.
Hi, my name is Amber Ogle. I'm at 421 Springfield Road in St. Clair, and I think she hit on it a little bit. I'm just curious as to why the city would want to take ownership of the roads before the 15-year plan was in place. It seems like it would be a more believable thing if the 15-year plan was in place and then show it to the residents, and then they would have an idea of what you're trying to do rather than just trying to take the streets.
Right. Yeah. Again, this is first step. This is like the last lady said, she was a union address. If union wanted to expand towards this would be the first step that they would do. All we're doing right now is for the roads, but yes, it would be to grow. That is the whole point for this city to grow with the other towns. No one is forcing anyone, just like the attorney said. Even expanding out towards Stanton, Sullivan, no one's being forced to annex anything. This is about growth. This is about the people that might have 300 acres that want to come into St. Clair and might want to zone that industrial commercial so we have more jobs, more places for homes in order to expand. This isn't about taking anyone's rights away. All this is step one to grow.
I don't know that really answered my question.
I just want to live. Annexation does not take ownership. Annexing, the city doesn't own the highway out to the rest area. MoDOT still owns the highway. It's just within the city limits. When you drive on 270 in St. Louis, MoDOT owns 270. You go to lots of different municipalities, but it's not owned by those municipalities. You know, whatever the highway through town is still MoDOT's highway. It's not the city. So I'm not here to take any position. I'm just saying it's not a claim of ownership. It's just saying where the boundaries of the city are.
Right, in order for the police officers to be able to better patrol that area.
Well, I don't know if it's for the, you can decide whatever. I mean, we can talk to the police on our officers don't spend a lot of time on the interstate. They spend some, but the highway patrol probably spends more time on the interstate than our officers.
So then, if this is solely for the purpose of a 15-year plan and it's not so much for that interest, why would the 15-year plan not be in place before you would try and do this so that you can let the residents know?
I know what you're saying. Okay, you can't make a plan unless you know what's going to be available. So how could we plan not knowing what roadways we would have? Does that make it easier for you? It's kind of getting the cart before the horse. If you're making a plan of growth, you need to know what areas you have possibility. You have to understand there may be some people along those areas who want to annex. There may be some land that opens up someplace down the road, someplace, large pieces of land that could be developed, and all of this could be developed for the betterment of the city. So you have to know what you're going to have to work with before you can make a plan. If that helps.
I guess maybe it does a little bit, but I don't know. That's okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
I'm sorry, 1157 North Service Road, Union, Missouri.
Your name?
Cynthia Cox, not Ward that was sent to me, and not Cynthia, but Cynthia Cox. And it's Zane Ward, not Zane Cox. So, first of all, with the notifications, it's a little upsetting when you get something sent to you that's not even correct, and then you're asked to take over and manage something when addresses aren't even correct. So that was a little off-putting to me, but if we had wanted to be in city limits, we would have purchased in city limits. And it's in a roadway. I understand completely. You're trying to get money in from the being able to go out and ticket if you're following somebody. And there's some circumstances where they can continue to follow somebody. There's some circumstances where they have to cut it off from the board. I understand all that. I understand trying to run this. I came from a community that my husband and I were very involved in, so I understand your position up there. I understand how you all are feeling that you're on the fire line. But it is personal to people out here. And when you talk about you would only be voluntarily annexed, that's fine. But I don't want a factory going up next to me because the person beside me decided to annex and sell their property. I didn't sign on for that. I don't want that. I know that you have things you could develop like the old airport. No development is being done within the limits you already have. You know, you keep saying, well, we can't make a plan without knowing what we have. You still have to have some kind of a concept because you chose where you want to annex. What made you choose where you want to annex to? Because there's a bigger plan, even if it's just a concept, that should be shown. I'm concerned about taxes. How will that affect my taxes?
Again, ma'am, no one's forcing you to annex. And I'm sorry it was addressed to you incorrectly, that information would come from county since you're not a St. Clair resident, so we don't have factual
It's on
information.
St. Clair letterhead from, I believe, your signature.
What she's saying is the address is, the only access to that is the Franklin County's GIS map. And so we looked at each individual property on the county's GIS map, and we went with the addresses that the county has on record. That's how those were addressed.
Well, I pay my county taxes and every other.
Well, and again, we don't have any control over the county's record. The only access we had was to provide notification to people who had an address, who had property that was adjacent. And so we just, if you look at the Franklin County GIS map, you'll get the same information we did. We just looked at each individual. Yeah, we just went with each property, and so we found out real quick that their information isn't updated very well.
So I guess maybe it was more of a survey that you sent out asking yes or no. What are you going to do with those? Is this just an exercise of this is what we have to do, part of the step, to have a public hearing? And it's not going to be taken into account everybody who said no on those forms?
All of that information gets provided for the petition. It all goes to the county.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Actually, I take it back. It goes to MoDOT.
Start again.
It goes to the Aldermen?
No, so there's, MoDOT has a process, and so we send out letters, we have a public hearing, we send those results to MoDOT.
We have plenty of laws without having more than city laws and everything. I have camper, I like to fire my rifle, burn brush piles and stuff. Live in freedom, good American freedom. I've been there for 40 years. I just kind of went on so basically the city laws will come out our way. I live right on 47. Mrs. Saling, I talked to your person. I bought that house. Nice to see you, Mrs. Saling.
regards to property. You know,
Yeah,
we
the
talked
city-
about the city and their alteration with their fences. You know, whether you live in the city or whether you live in the country, there's always gonna be something that you're not gonna like. But what we're addressing here today doesn't have anything to do with the laws, the way you roam your property, the fences that you have. All we're asking for is access to the road that runs in front of your house. That's it right there. Now, these concerns that a lot of people are making right now, maybe that's gonna come up, but it certainly isn't tonight. This isn't the time that we all need to be upset about laws that might be enforced, about changes that might be made, because all we're asking for is access to the road. So I think everybody's kind of getting ahead. We can't do anything without coming back to you. And if you decide that you want to annex, of course, we would want to go through those processes. But I think there's been much ado about something that's really not relevant at this time. And I appreciate each one of your concerns, because right now I live in the city and I really love my house, but there's a good possibility I'm gonna have a development that's gonna go right down for me, and I'm not gonna have the privacy, I'm not gonna be able to see the deer, and I'm gonna have a whole lot more traffic in my neighborhood. But I'm willing to do that for growth. And I would hope that a lot of you would think about that and understand. We hear the comment all the time, say Clair never goes anywhere. Well, we sure aren't gonna go anywhere unless we understand that we are at some point gonna have to give up a little, and that's all that this is, it's just a little.
I
Okay,
want my
thanks.
freedom.
I know, and you're not gonna give up your freedom.
Now, I want to take a little.
You have a
little
lovely
bit more,
place, I
a
love
little
your
bit more,
place, I
a
look
little
at it
bit
every time I go down the
Let me ask you, is there a chance you can be grandfathered into a property? What's the years before they go around my property?
We, I don't
So
think
this is-
we're not even to that, I mean, that's.
We're nowhere
We're not
near
even
anything like that.
anything like that.
Okay,
That's-
let me ask you another. You keep mentioning MoDOT, you mentioned MoDOT. Does the state of Missouri put pressure on you to do this?
No.
So it's
See,
just,
I haven't had any comment. I mean, the city administrator would be the one that's having the conversation.
because we can already change the highway thing. They're really talking about it, maybe. How long is it until the highway's changed?
They haven't had any conversation with me. How long?
They're gonna run Interstate 37, right, in front of my house, I think, that's probably eventually.
If you know something I don't know, we can certainly tell us, but I haven't heard one word.
I just want, I will address your freedom issue. If you look at any of the properties to the west, going west, from the city limit was, when they took just the highway, then took MoDOT annexed the highway in. There's not been one single thing that changed. Anybody can burn along the highway, they can farm, they can shoot rifles, they can shoot deer. The city has no control over anything that's, you know, outside of that right of way. I can't say that it would be in 50 years.
Sir,
but I
can you
think-
get up to your microphone? We can't hear you. Thank you.
Sure, I'm sorry. The comment I made was, you know, just in response to his freedom. The city, I go back to the going west on the interstate, of what the neighbors along the highway, if anything, has changed for them, and that's been probably 25 years. And that was probably, what, I think it's 3 to 4 miles going out to the west to get to the rest area. So that's, I just wanted to make that comment just on, the city has no control on anything other than what's in its city limits.
That's the problem. There's a buggy line down the road. Union moved their city limits out. I don't know if you remember when they did that. They moved it toward my house, farther. And he had a yard sale all the time. He was retired, him and his wife. Something to do. They said, city stopped by and said, nope, one yard sale a year, you're in city limits. Stuff like that. It's that little stuff like that where it pisses everybody off.
This has got,
Because it starts a little bit and it turns into like communism, basically. That's why I look at it. I bought that 35 years ago, 40 years ago, because I wanted to be free. We all want to be free. Yeah. If you want to live in state limits, live in state limits. Yeah. But I really appreciate it. You all just go right around my property. You got my address. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Dr. Catherine Medich. I live at 7879 Highway 47, Union, Missouri. I have more of a comment than actually a question about the annexation. I understand you guys are looking at the first step to look and see where you want to go with your sewer and your water and see what needs to be done. I am strongly against wanting that to go forward because eventually I don't want the possibility of someone choosing to annex next to me to go into St. Clair city limits. I know you don't have plans for it yet, but this is the first step to make plans to make it available to people surrounding my property. So I just wanted to make my statement known that I do not, I am against the annexation on the roads that you wish to do for your future development. And I also wanted to mention that we did receive a letter. I do have it, so I'd like to turn it into whoever needs that. We are the ones who informed our neighbors that did not receive letters. We also are the ones who were told by other neighbors who tried to send an email saying that they were against it, that they asked for confirmation of that email, and the email was not received and confirmed. So I am concerned that if people did get the letter and did not hand it in directly so they knew it was received, there may be some issues with communication in that way.
Thank you.
I live at 1020 Van Brown Court, St. Clair, Missouri. Unfortunately, I live 44 and North Commercial closes me in there. So if you annex the road, then we pay city taxes and then you tell us when we can build a fence and such, correct? Is that how this will work? I know you're just taking the road, you said, but what about, like, if we're in city limits, would we then pay the city taxes too?
No, it does not change this was one of the frequently asked questions. It does not change your school, your township, your taxes, any of it.
Okay, and then on the paper that y'all provided for frequently asked questions, number 3, it says, is this just the beginning process to annex my property? Your answer is, we have no plans currently to forcibly annex my property. So what does that mean? Does that mean 10 years from now you're going to forcibly annex my property? In your 15-year plan?
No, I mean, I can't speak for what somebody's gonna do down the road. The board can't speak for whoever's gonna be sitting on the board 10, 15 years down the road. But this is not part of a master plan to go out and annex people's
And
property.
I think Attorney Voss has addressed that multiple times
Well,
with
it
the
says
Westers.
currently though, your guys' wording on this paper says currently, which means now you're not going to.
Right, but I'm trying to say that Attorney Voss has addressed this twice with going west. No one has been forced in the last 25 years to come into city property. No one has been forced to come in. So maybe the wording isn't exactly how would you like to hear it phrased, but I think he explained it best when there is not a forcible annexation.
So you can, if you come to me 10 years from now and say.
I cannot tell you what's going to happen 10 years from now. I can
And
say in
I
the
say
past,
no.
we have not forcibly annexed anyone in.
Right.
Involuntary annexation is almost